if you want to listen to music on the run, just wear your own headphones so I don't have to be subjected to your John Bon Jovi 6 times on the race. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's fine. You can make the choice to wear the headphones. Idiot. What?
No one knows what you're talking about.
I don't give a shit. They'll piece it together. Contextual clues. Speakers, races, headphones.
Oh, that's a common courtesy, I think, right?
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to listen to your music, and the quality is so bad. I'm saying, like, it's like their speakers are underwater. It's like it's hot. All the mics are hot constantly.
I can imagine it's like
kind of. Yeah. And like it's not hard to get a quality or even halfway good quality Bluetooth speaker in 2022, and not that expensive. Like there's a Beats one that's $150, or you can get like a cheap off-brand one for $20, and it still sounds good.
I'm on a race. I'm thinking about how I want to crush these people. There's this piece of shit who keeps passing me. I pass him, Dave, on the obstacle, and then he passed like 3 minutes later. He's passing me on the running. Some hot shot.
Problem. That's a you problem, isn't it?
Well, I know, but that's what I'm saying. That isn't me problem. That is my problem. I'm trying to figure this guy out. Somebody else playing Bon Jovi. It's terrible. I can't focus. Living on a prayer. If the prayer's not helping me, I gotta live on something else to beat this guy. Anyways, we gotta do the intro.
I guess so.
This is the Team Objection Podcast for November 2022, episode 552. Kind of worked out funny that way. As I was typing it, I was like, there's a lot of twos. Jesus. Anyways, we have a couple things to talk about this episode. It's going to be a Suns cast of sorts. You can tell from the shirts. I didn't get the memo. That's my fault. I'm wearing a gray shirt, just not the right gray shirt. We are going to talk a little bit about the new Pokemon games, though, because it's timely and interesting, and even Dave's probably just heard a little bit. I mean, the internet's been abuzz with a lot of the glitches and people trying to get returns, and there's been some outside issues that even for somebody who doesn't care about the series, they might still be interested in hearing about what's going on.
I mean, I wouldn't say I don't care. It's more so I actually haven't heard this. This is all new to me, so I get to hear along with the audience.
You're even more out of touch than usual right now because you're like so busy all the time. You're even more busy right now than usual.
Look,
with life.
All I'm saying is just when your job gets really, really difficult and people just want to throw new shit at you every day, and you get home and you're like, what the fuck just happened? It wears on you. That's all.
No, I get it. Chris was not waiting patiently for the intro. He was waiting, but he was seething inside. It was impatiently.
I could see it. I could see the fire actually.
He was boiling
in his eyes.
Yeah, steam coming out of his ears.
300 episodes ago, that would have been true. Where I'm like, can I at least do this and then you can go off the rail? And now I'm like, I don't care anymore.
Now you're fucking used to it.
I'm dead
too.
inside.
Not only do you not care, you're like, yeah, this tracks.
Yep.
So, Dave, let me tell you my Pokemon story. I actually think I'm bipolar, which is kind of I guess that's a broader topic, but I played it the first night, and I was like, I don't really like this. So what it was is it felt a little janky. Second time I use that word tonight. Which it just like is. There are some glitches. There are some little weird clipping things. Some animations are a little wonky. And it felt like I'm playing it and there's just like no magic. There's nothing like interesting me. My Pokemon, like, it didn't feel like it was like a creature I was bonding with. It felt like an Ember machine for anyone who plays Pokemon. I was just hitting Ember and just decimating everything in front of me. So I was like, there's no challenge. There's nothing interesting. I'm so bored. Am I going to have to sell a Pokemon game back? A new gen? And then I played it today. Or no, it was last night. Sorry, this was 2 days ago. Last night played it. And I kind of like fell in love. I got to do my own challenge, which I know people always say, but it's like, I don't want to like have to jump through a bunch of fucking hoops to make the game hard for myself. But no, this is just like, you just go explore and like find new Pokemon, find people to fight, like go where they clearly don't want you to go, but you find a way to do it anyways. And I've now spent, I don't know, Chris, like we played it 4 or 5 hours now. I haven't even touched the first gym yet. I'm like, I haven't even technically started the game and I played it for so long and I'm having a great time.
So you mentioned that you didn't have the magic when you first started. What is generally the magic that you feel when starting a new Pokemon game?
This game takes a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some of that in a second. But just in the beginning, there are always similarities between Pokemon games. Usually it's you're in some kind of sleepy small town with only your mom because your dad is dead, unless he's the gym leader in Ruby Sapphire. And then you have to kind of figure out, okay, I got to have some deceit to get me my first Pokemon, and then I set out into the world of adventure as a 10-year-old, starry-eyed and hopeful. And then you kind of wander around and figure out your way. But it's always very linear, especially the beginning, because it's just, okay, starting town, always geographically convenient, then you go on the first route, etc. This one has some of that, but it's quickly pushed aside because instead it's about joining this academy. You're a student there, and you kind of get railroaded into it. You can technically explore the first big area on your way to this place, but really it doesn't feel like it opens up until after you complete the school part, and now it's like the game basically says, all right, here's the stuff you can do. I'm going to put it on your map. You can go after gym badges, you can go after the bad guys, you can go find these huge Pokemon, and then it shrugs its shoulders, and it leaves it open to you. So I think it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it was probably the most linear of any start to a Pokemon game in a way that wasn't super interesting because the school stuff, I don't think it's fine. It's different, but it is kind of bland.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the school in a second.
But then it opens up into the most open the game has ever been. We've always talked about like Breath of the Wild and other open world games and what a benefit that is. Well, this is sort of akin to that now because it's like, okay, here's this huge world we've built. A sometimes poorly rendered, glitch-ridden, but fascinating world. Go.
Yeah.
So now you have this dichotomy. It's the most interesting it's been, right after perhaps the least interesting it's been.
What were you gonna say, Dave?
I said it's Breath of the Pokemon.
Yeah, really.
It's kind of world.
And to answer your question, so this is actually a broader question. We should tackle this at one point. All of us, maybe like what when we consider something like magic in video games, like what is that? And I think it's a few different things. And it's a good question. I think we can explore more later. For me, Pokemon, it's the idea of one of the reasons Black and White is one of my favorite gens is it was all new Pokemon. So it's the idea of going out, starting this new journey. Yeah, it's the same journey, 8 gyms or whatever, but getting to assemble that new team, starting from the bottom, going through challenges, that gets me most of the time. It didn't at first, but now it has. I love assembling the team of like new fun Pokemon every time.
Getting that team of misfits and bonding them together and training and growing and overcoming the adversity that the bad guy is. Usually. Yeah. That's a trope that I know you like fall hook, line, and sinker for. Constantly.
Yeah, well, and there's different approaches. Like, I think Chris, don't let me speak for you. I think he just kind of like plays it and like lets it come to him. Like, oh, there's an interesting Pokemon. Yeah, I'll catch it and it'll stay on my team. And I'm very like, I want to look up my team ahead of time. Then I want to go find the team, then assemble them, and then we can start. So I've been the whole time, Chris and Doug will tell you, I've just been like, all right, like new guy, you're on the team. You off the team. And it's like assembling a team. You got to cross the river to assemble the team. That's been my experience.
It turns out.
Just tell me, do they say, you son of a bitch, I'm in?
They don't.
They do. They do actually.
There's a character that kind of does. Not quite in that word. It is E for everyone, I think. Maybe it's T for T. I don't know. I think I can tell this is an open world game because I play it just like I did Skyrim or I have been Elden Ring or whatever, where it's like I am just like that. I like to wander out in a direction and see what catches my attention and go to it. That's fine to have way markers and main story things to do. I will dabble in those, but I really just like setting off somewhere and being like, oh, look at that over there, and then go over there, and then I see a tower off in the distance. Hey, I'm going to check that out. So this has been scratching that itch perfectly, and we've talked about how maybe not every game needs to be Breath of the Wild, to use that specific example, where it's like maybe everything shouldn't become open world, but it feels like a natural fit for this series. It's sort of toyed with it in the past, and now it's like, okay, for all the foibles this game has, and we'll talk about it momentarily, the big open world aspect is delivering on pretty much every count for me.
And there's value. Actually, I want to hear Dave's question. Dave never asked questions, so I want to hear it.
No, it just sounds like there's a whole... One of my favorite things to do in big games, where I know it's going to take me a long time, where there's a main story and then like 15 other things you can do, is like Fallout. I always did this on. I finish side quests. Like I go and do side quests. And I'm like, oh, Grand Theft Auto is the same thing. It's like, so I guess I'm done with all the side quests. Now I'll do the main quest because I want to get as much into it as I can. So kind of sounds like that could be along those lines where it's like, I don't want to do the main quest because I don't want to miss any of these side quests.
Yeah, it not directly because I I don't know if there are any quote unquote side quests, but the side quests in this game are kind of like what you make of it. I want to go find a bunch of items, or I want to go train and see this new area. Or assemble the team. That's been my side quest. That's been hours upon hours of breeding. I gotta breed them. I'm breeding Pokemon, Dave. Then I'm breeding the kids with the father. I realized too late.
You sick individual.
And you breed them. It's a picnic.
You
have a picnic, and there's a picnic basket. And when the Pokemon have bred, you check the basket, and there's eggs in the basket. It's like a weird mix of food and picnic. You can make sandwiches, and the sandwiches help. They're kind of like aphrodisiac.
But they're really poorly animated.
It's strange. It's really bad. But
just saying, after you end up breeding, you do want sandwiches usually, right?
Well, you have to do sandwiches before. Then they get the bonus, and then they breed. And I'm like, you piece of shit. I better come back in here. There better be 6 eggs in this thing, or I'm going to be pissed, and you're both going to be off the team. And they've delivered pretty well.
So before we give a very quick, I don't want to say score, but just an overall, maybe a minute impression from each of us, we will do a full review of this because all 3 of me, Sean, and Michaela are playing it. So it's a tailor-made for at some point. The question I wanted to ask you, because it also pertains to Dave, is this. In the lead-up, especially given some of the information we were getting on it, I thought maybe this would be the best Pokemon game for newcomers. And I think in some ways it definitely could be, as far as making it accessible for him and or his kids, because there is even a point where I think, his 2 oldest could still get something out of this.
Oh, they will. They love Pokemon.
But here's my question for you then, Sean. I also think in some ways it's better if you really have played the series before, because there isn't a lot of guidance, and in some ways that's a strength, but now for newcomers, to me, I'm feeling like I'm answering my own question. I almost feel like I'm glad I know what I'm doing, because I'm like, okay, I want to be around this level, and I have a Pokemon or 2 that have evolved at this point. I know how to sort of self-set benchmarks. So do you think for newcomers that'll be fun? For example, you, Doug, me, we've all run into some level 50 thing that's been oh shit, we're level 12. So how do you think this portrays itself for newcomers like Dave? Because I really want him to get to play one of these games. I think he would like it, but is this the one for him? So far, we don't have a complete picture yet, but we've played the beginning, which is where it's going to need to hook him, so we at least have some idea.
Yeah, that's hard. Because in a lot of ways, like you said, it's very accessible. There's a lot of quality of life things that make so much sense.
Yes.
The way that they allow you to navigate the world easily was really smart. But there are some things that they do seem to intentionally build off your knowledge of Pokemon, whether they mean to or not. The way that they kind of give you the quests and split them up. The way that the Pokemon behave. I'm trying to put myself in a position where if I didn't know this already, what would my reaction be? And it's hard because I do. I definitely think you should try it, though, because you kind of do like open world. The problem for me, of course, has been the story, which I know I always harp on the story. I'm like, an adult story would be fine. It's it is just steadily getting worse. At this point, I'm like, if we could just not backstep anymore, I would be fine. The quests, once you get into them, I think they're sort of interesting. And so maybe it kind of upticks back up. But that beginning where you're in a school, except you're not really. Why are you in a school? Why is it a school? I don't even understand. Dave, you go to the school, you spend a day in the school, and then they're like, okay, for your curriculum this semester, go off in the world and have adventures. And you're like,
yeah, it's an independent study.
I just got here. What do you mean go out? It's like you go to NAU and they send you to Phoenix and they're like, have fun. Teach yourself.
Your first day of college.
What am I paying for?
$35,000. Here's $35,000 to start college and go.
Now I'm early. Perhaps it will link back in a lot of fun, interesting ways to the school. Right now, I'm like, this was just purely aesthetic. Window dressing of why we're in a school. So I don't like that.
I feel like it's going to reconnect because that area that they're like, you can't go there, the area where the sun doesn't hit, like in Lion King, there's a crater in the middle of this continent right next to the school that was probably going to be where Victory Road or the Elite Four or whatever is. So I think it's going to reconnect. And I will say, as bad as I do think the intro is, it is slow, it also doesn't last very long. If that was a 4 to 5 hour thing, I would be like, kill me. But you can get in and out of it in an hour if you just don't take any classes. You're just like, all right, you're letting me go. See ya.
Yeah.
So it does seem like a weird misstep, but at least it doesn't overstay its welcome.
I kind of like the rival a bit.
Yeah,
She's
I like
cool.
her. The side characters are fine. A couple of them seem intriguing. I think the story beats are going to be pretty obvious because it's still a kid's game. But so, I mean, I think it's something that I would like to recommend to Dave, but I at least want to finish it myself before I for sure give it my recommendation because, as we talked about on the show before, like me and Sean take those pretty seriously. So, like, so far, I'm like, I think Dave and or his kids would like this. But let's make sure it's not some kind of glitch-ridden nightmare in the latter half before we go ahead and recommend it.
One of the hardest parts for me, actually, is open-world game lends itself to you just go out and explore and level up. Well, Pokemon games, they have a thing that maybe is buried somewhere in this tutorial where if your Pokemon get too high level, they won't listen to you anymore. So then you have to, like, find lower-level Pokemon if you get too high or not get too high, but then maybe you're not exploring as much as you want to, and it's this weird balance. I don't mind, and I think it's a little bit fun, but it's because I have 18 other generations of experience with it.
This sounds like one that is going to be best. I mean, my son's 6. I don't know that he's quite ready for taking it on his own, but him watching me play it, he's probably going to be all about. So
probably yes.
Especially if you can because you can see all the Pokemon now. There are no random encounters, so you can run through an area and be like, "Oh, look at that thing. That's kind of cool." Whether it's you or him. Be like, hey, let's go catch that thing. That looks neat. Like, what's that over there? Let's go check it out. So there's a lot to be said for that in ways that the series has not had before.
And it's a big world, but like I don't think it's
not overwhelming.
Like if you're never too far away from wherever you want your next destination to be. And that's kind of nice.
Especially because you can fast travel from the word go. You don't have to worry about having fly or an HM or whatever.
Whereas Elden Ring is like it might be the biggest gaming world I've ever seen, and
I'm imagining Wind Waker back in the day where you're like, how long am I sailing for?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love Wind Waker, but...
Elden Ring, I love Elden Ring, but it's like you border... Because you have the map, and then you have an underworld map as well, and you're like, how? It's almost too big. This, I think, is a nice size for what they're trying to accomplish.
Elephant in the room, by the way, before we move on, because again, we'll review this in full, but is if you've seen anything on Twitter or articles on like Polygon or whatever the hell, you've seen that it's buggy, it's glitchy, there's things that clip in and out of each other, shadows that vanish upon sight, poorly done animations that feel rushed. Like, this definitely feels like a game that needed 3 more months of development, but had a release date, and Japan's real strict on its release dates, so they wanted to hit the holiday season, and they did, by God, in a bit of a mess that will no doubt be patched sometime over the next couple months, if not sooner. So, yes, there are technical problems with this game. It's not stunning looking. You know, we've seen like Xenoblade Chronicles or Breath of the Wild, for example, look much, much better than this game does. But, and this seems to be the takeaway other people have had as well, I'm having fun. And more than I did in Sword Shield for damn sure.
I would agree.
Probably more than Sun Moon. So, like, I'm enjoying myself. I'm eager to play more in a way I haven't felt like the last couple of main releases for this.
It's probably, I've enjoyed this more, well, and I said this about Sword Shield. I enjoyed Sword Shield more than quite a few of the, probably since Black White. And I'm enjoying this quite a bit more than Sword Shield as well. It feels like the open world is, it's better designed. There's value in things that you can find. Whereas like sometimes Sword and Shield, you're like, why am I even over here? It's all just high level Pokemon. There's barely any item. Like, this is just stupid. I can't do anything here. Here, there's still value in going, even when Chris found a cave full of like nightmare spawn.
Really tough, good, high level Pokemon.
But like,
so I'm just running through picking up items because I can't find anything. It'll all kill me. Apparently, Doug's had success catching all the high-level stuff. I don't know what he's doing. He's
that's
tricks.
been the joke. Is like, Doug will find like a level 50, and we're like, oh, good luck. You're 30 levels outpaced. He's like, oh, I caught it. Like, how?
So Dave or anybody else out there on the fence about picking this up, it really comes down to this. They're not save like breaking bugs. You know, it's not like, you know, there's been a couple Zelda games that on release people are like, hey, maybe don't do this or you might freeze your game forever. They're more of the harmless, innocuous, and I think kind of funny ones. So if you're not really taken out of the experience by those, if anything, like, I'm not saying they add value. I'd rather they weren't there, but it's kind of funny when, like, Doug, for example, earlier today, he was showing me before he left, he was like, all right, my Pokemon's evolving, and there's a second one that appeared next to that one for no reason. It's just two of the same thing just sitting there, and you're like, and then one evolves and the one vanishes. So it's like, okay. So to me, I'm like, that's kind of funny, but I can see why people are upset by it.
I will say the nice thing of me sometimes taking the game way after it's come out is I have what happened with Red Dead Redemption 2, where the big complaint was there's no fast travel, and you had to like jerry rig your own fast travel. By the time I played it, they patched it, and there was fast travel, so it was great.
Yep. I've had that happen as well. There's been a couple of games I've played that I was like, I got to them a year late, and now it's like, all right, well, you're not going to experience what it was like to have day one bugs.
Yep.
Or I played Andromeda and it never got fixed. So,
Well, or I played Andromeda and then said fuck off and never finished it because fuck that game.
Yeah. Wait, what are you talking about? Red Dead's fast travel? Fast travel's been the same the whole time on Red Dead 2.
Red Dead 2 did not have fast travel to start. You'd have to hold the X button and do the cinematic mode and go read a book. But
no. It's always been. I don't know what. This doesn't matter. This conversation is relevant. We're talking about Pokemon. It's a quest you have to do. And once you do the quest in your wagon, it's like an upgrade to the wagon, and then you can fast travel.
Yeah,
it's not a patch. It was there from day one.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, it's important that you explain when you're wrong. I thrive on this, actually.
It's about accuracy in games journalism.
Yeah, Well, do we have integrity or not?
Yeah.
I've enjoyed this so far. We're going to do a mini score, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right now, I'm like 7.5.
That's about where I am.
To 8, honestly.
Might be an 8. I'd say 8.
I'm at 8 for the fun factor. And that matters because on the first night, I was like, I'm thinking 4 or 5. I was like really not feeling it. And it's jumped up quite a bit. So
we'll see. We'll give a full review coming up some point. Of course, we have an entire month of December sketched out for something else. We'll talk about it at the end of the show. But I guess second week of January, maybe we'll review it because everything else is booked between now and then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Suns. You'll notice, and I'm just going to spoil this for the podcast listeners, that there's a separate bullet point for DeAndre Ayton. So his name is forbidden in this first part of the segment. However, it's been a month. The Suns are about to play the Lakers tonight. It's about, I guess, 10 minutes or so from tip-off. But they're right now 10-6, second place in the West. Of course, first and 10th place in the West are separated by 2 games. Because we're barely 20 games in, so it's still pretty early. It's way too early to be worried about position and standings and stuff. But as far as the Suns have been concerned, what have you taken away from what you've seen so far?
I've been impressed. You know what? Even wearing the shirt shows you that I've been impressed because this was like a symbol of like I'm not heartbroken anymore. I'm willing to let bygones be bygones. You fucked up, but you seem to be apologizing, so it's okay. Yeah, I've been really impressed. No Chris Paul, no Cam Johnson. If this was year 1, which would be terrible if we traded for Chris Paul and he got hurt right away, this team doesn't go even, what have they been, 3-3 without him?
Yes.
No way they play this well. And we've beaten some quality teams, and more importantly, I think we've been so close. We lost by like a great game to the Jazz. One of the few times I've ever not been completely pissed off when we lost a game. It's like just a good, fun game. And we're shorthanded, so it's fine. Devin Booker stepped up.
Yeah.
Campaign, I'm seeing pieces. I'm almost feeling better about this now. This is going to sound really stupid. Than last year when we were winning every game, coming from behind in the fourth quarter, and it was just like Chris Paul taking over. Because you think in the back of your head, that's great, but that's just Chris Paul. That's not even almost a team thing. What happens if he's not here? And now it's like, our wins feel like collective wins. Like Devin Booker's playing out of his mind, but he's involving, part of that has been him trusting his teammates. So I think it's been really promising.
What's been funny is I agree with you in so many ways. The fact of last year was so much fun. Oh my God, we're down by 15 at halftime. No big deal. We're fine. We'll come back. That was the expectation the entire year. But really so far this year, we have 6 losses so far. 1 point to the Jazz, twice 2 points to the Blazers on games that really we could have won. We lost to the Magic by 2 or 3, I think it was. Our losses have been razor thin margins, and that's without Chris Paul, without Cam Johnson, without Jay Crowder, because fuck all, what's he doing? It'd be kind of nice to have him right now with Cam Johnson hurt, right? Jay, you wanted to start, right? But we don't, and yet here we go. Booker is being a ball distributor, making smart plays. When Chris Paul's been out, it feels like, okay, Booker's going to get 6 assists tonight because he's going to have the ball in his hands. And I'm really, really proud of Campaign for coming in because last year he was so shaky. But, man, this year he's been steady. He's been shooting well. He's been aggressive, not turning the ball over a lot. I'm happy with the way the team is responding. Damon Lee seems to be a really good pickup, especially in the fourth quarter. We got a lot of holes still, but I think we can fill those during the year, and it gives me hope for the playoffs because that's all that matters, right? At this point, get a top 6 seed and then figure it out.
campaign needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because what we saw last year, I mean, he was dealing with nagging injuries throughout, and a player of his size and stature, if he doesn't have an explosive first step, he might as well not be in the league. And he kind of wasn't for a while, right? So, like, he's obviously continued to work on his game. He's shooting the ball great from three. All credit to him. I've seen a handful of folks who are like, should we start him over Chris Paul? And I'm like, okay, like, again, can we just not overreact to every fucking 5-game sample, please?
Who says this?
I just dumbass Suns fan. I mean, it's the same ones that thought Suns in 4 was funny and continue to think Suns in 4 was funny even after the horse ran out of the stable, jumped over a shark, and drowned in the ocean.
Yeah.
I will say this, to your point about the games, like, 10-6, fine. Again, right in the mix in the West. A lot of close losses in there. Both Portland losses were bullshit. One in overtime when we had a lead of about 5 points with a little over a minute left. And then the fucking Jeremy Grant 6-step travel game, which, boy, that was fun. You want to talk about bad fan takes, watching people trying to be like, no. He doesn't have control, and then he takes 3 steps as a gather, and then he takes 2 steps as a jump shot. And you're like, you are showing you don't fucking know anything about basketball.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, because I know.
Yeah.
Good Lord, he did the square dance before he shot that.
Like, live, that was a completely obvious travel, which is a bad sign, because sometimes you can break it down and be like, okay, let's see. So he brings the ball over on his gather on this step, and then like a euro, and then that's like, this was... The man went from inside the paint to almost the 3-point line in like 0.7 seconds without dribbling.
I just don't know what the refs would have been afraid of. Like, like sometimes like, oh, you don't want to call that because risk whatever. No one's going to look at it and honestly be like, yeah, that wasn't a travel and be mad. It's like, yeah, that was clearly steps. But whatever.
That's bitterness from Suns fan, but
10-6,
still.
like technically tied for first in the West, although because Portland's played so many more games, they have one more loss than us, but still I've never seen that before, but we're doing great.
Because it's the same win percentage. It's actually happened on the bottom half of the bracket now, too, where it's like somebody has 1 more win and 2 more losses, but they're tied because they're like 2/3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really kind of weird. Because even the East doesn't have this. The East has 2 teams up top and then some spread. Again, everybody's still in the mix. Like the Lakers, as bad as they've been, are like 2 games out of the play-in right now because it's really early. But still, it's a decent start.
Yeah, I mean, Jock Lawrence. So I was going to say, why is Landale better at offense than Ayton? But we said no Ayton. I'm going to stick to that.
You already broke the rule.
But
Landale's been great. Landale's been great. Dave
mentioned
Damian Lee.
His defense, I have to say, this is a unique perspective a little bit. So many of the games I watch on the YouTube, so I follow the game live, and then I watch it the YouTube recap. You'll have stretches where 6, 7, 8 possessions straight, their offense goes right at Landale every time and scores every time straight. And I don't know if I've only watched like a handful of games this year. It hasn't seemed as bad, but I'm wondering like what your take on that is. It's just continuous. They're just going at him and scoring every single time. Is his defense terrible or is this just a weird sample size?
He doesn't have the footwork to guard on the perimeter that well. And he's a center, so he's certainly not unique in that. I mean, Biyombo's kind of the same way too, where it's like, if he gets isolated on a speedy guard and has dragged out at the perimeter, probably not going to go well. He's blocked shots well in the interior, rebounds pretty well for his size. Is he a great defender? I don't think so, but I don't think he's a minus defender either.
Okay.
In the interior, he does really well. I mean, I've seen in the Warriors game, for example, he had, I think 3 blocks in there. All of them started fast breaks, and he ran the floor well, which is kind of what he brings. So, him coming in off the bench, that spark plug. And if he's got it going, great, let's keep it rolling. And if he doesn't, well, back to the bench you go, that type of deal.
Yeah.
So matchup dependent, that type of deal. So that's what he brings, and I'm fine with that, especially for 15 minutes off the bench, if that.
It feels like Sham's not on the team. And part of it's because he's hurt. But like if I look back at like the last 2 years between low contributions and being injured, I'm just like, what happened? And we signed you right away. Like it just, what a confusing move. I have been very down on Landry Shamet.
It's too bad because I think the guy, if he gets in a groove, is such a good shooter and can space the floor. But when Damon Lee is doing the same thing, what do we need him for, right?
Yeah.
Now, I will say there is a midnight hour approaching for Damian Lee. There will be some kind of transformation back into a pumpkin at some point. I'm not saying he can't continue to be at or get back to this level at times. There's a reason why he was available so easily. And He's trying really hard on defense. I love his effort, but he's not a good defender. And at some point, he's also not going to be a 45+% shooter from three. He's going to go through a down streak. So I'm just urging Suns fans to be cautious because like the guy's been awesome so far. Be as happy about that as you want. There's going to be coming like a downswing too, and I don't want you just to all throw him in the ocean when that happens.
Well, this is what's good if we can get our players healthy and we can get Chris Paul back and we can get Cam Johnson back and we can get Landry Shamet back, is that when that natural regression occurs, when Cam Payne maybe regresses a little bit more, Damian Lee can't shoot as well from three in the fourth quarter. I mean, the guy, I think I heard Damian Lee is shooting something like 60% from three in the fourth quarter right now.
Yeah.
Like it's something, I think I saw the stat, it was like 1.67 points per possession or something along those lines in the fourth quarter when he shoots. It's like when he has the ball, it's like, yeah, that's really good, actually. But he's going to regress. And so when we can get our healthy players back and we can fill those in, that can help us stem the tide, I think. And then we can kind of reach an equilibrium, hopefully, with those guys.
Do you think that this can like help us not play Chris Paul 35 minutes a game? Because
I'm playing 0 minutes a game.
Why were we? Well, I know, but you know what? Like, why were we? I don't know. I got to try to trust the coaching staff, but
I said this last year because even before he got hurt, and it was Cam Payne was trash. There were no other point guards on the roster because Elfrid Payton does not count. He's not an NBA player. So, like, yes, they overextended him. It's probably part of why he got hurt, but I'm not sure what else they were supposed to do short of playing Booker 45 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Yep. It was just it's a failure. Now, could they have made a move to pick up somebody? Like, that's another issue, obviously, but with the personnel they had, I don't know how they could have sat him too much more. They could have sat him for a game. That's the one thing you can argue is like, you know, like the Warriors the other night just, you know, basically sat everybody except Kevon Looney for 3 minutes to keep his game streak going and then got their asses handed to them by 45 points. Maybe that's what the Suns should have done more last year, especially with a Chris Paul. I'd be like, all right, all the stars are sitting. Like it's a road back-to-back and fuck it. But other than that, I don't really know if I fault them too much for the way they handled it.
Not last year, I would say. Because... Look, we go on, we win the title. Is anyone saying, well, you really shouldn't have played Chris Paul as much? Like, no, it's hindsight. But because of that hindsight, going into this year, I'm like, we're playing Chris Paul. It seems like a lot. And then he gets hurt. I'm not saying one thing led to another, but it certainly doesn't help. And if we could just get other contributors to help bring his minutes down to like upper 20s maybe.
Well, here's what helps before I'm cutting out Dave, but here's our margin of victory. 17. 29, 13, 15.
Yep.
There's a couple.
That was not the case last year.
The 2-point opener against Dallas, we beat Minnesota by 9 in a game that wasn't really that close. Minnesota was fouling constantly down the stretch. That was a 15-point game. Beat Portland by 20, where they didn't have anybody. Beat Minnesota by 12. Beat the Warriors by 11. Again, not that close. And just beat the Knicks by 21. That's how you do it. Because that's the exact problem we talked about at the start of the segment, which was, oh, we're down by 10 going into the fourth quarter, but we'll come back. It's like, yeah, but then Chris Paul is going to play 11 minutes in the fourth quarter, and Booker is going to play from the 9-minute mark on. Now, if you actually take care of business and handle teams that you're much better than, that's how you keep them at 28 minutes a game.
Yep.
It's what the Warriors have done for years by Steph Curry being like, I have 45 through 3, and we're up by 40. So see ya. See you next game. I'm done. Yeah. So that's the solution to me. Again, they're going to have to do something else besides that to rest him regularly when he comes back. But to me, that's the cure-all because A, it means you're winning comfortably and accruing wins, and B, you're resting your top players.
At this point, I'm like, maybe it's good that he's hurt this early in the season. Like, rest up.
This is exactly what we said last year. He got injured right before the All-Star break, and we're like, all right, good. Well, I'm glad he got his injury out of the way now. He'll be healthy for the playoffs. And strangely enough, he pretty much was healthy for the playoffs, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, but was he? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know if he was 100%. The finger was healthy, but we don't know if there was some other lingering stuff. And it's getting to be at this point like, A, you can't trust Chris Paul whenever he says anything about his injuries because he always undersells it. That's been true of his entire Phoenix tenure and probably before that, but I didn't follow him as closely. And B, like, it's going to be something with him. Just like any undersized player at the end of their career, there's going to be more physical maladies, more issues, and they show more in a player like him. Because even like, Dirk, for example, can barely walk anymore. But guess what? He was still a walking bucket, maybe only walking because his feet were so terrible and his knees were shot. But like, you couldn't defend the 7-footer shooting a fadeaway. Chris Paul, if he doesn't have his handle and he can't get to his spots, you kind of can defend. Remember last year's playoffs?
Yeah.
Or 2 years ago with like the Lakers when he had no arm? Like, you can defend him pretty easily. It turns out it's a piece of cake.
You don't even have to defend him. You just let him sit in the corner.
Yeah, just put a token player somewhere within like 15 feet of him and then shrug.
Mm-hmm.
There's one other name I think we haven't mentioned, and I'm not talking about he who shall not be named. We'll get to him in a second. I'm talking about Mikal Bridges, who has taken a step this season so far, and I've been very impressed by him. Yes. I think he's a borderline all-star. I know that's a homer kind of speaking thing, and he needs to show it for another 30 games to even be in the conversation. But if he keeps up this offensive efficiency and his increased cutting, his ability to get his mid-range shot, and some surprising touch passing, the defense means he should be in the conversation.
What impresses me almost as much about him is like the games where he's like a volume scorer. That's great, right? But then he'll have like a game where he's like 1 for 8, like just a weird off game, but he's still shooting. He's still being aggressive. It's like, that's what I want to see.
Yep.
It's not always going to fall, but it's like the attitude that you need to have. I've been very impressed.
Yes. He's had attitude. I mean, he's got this little thing he does lately where if he's in front of the opponent's bench and he hits a 3, he does like this as he runs back down the court, like right in the face of. I mean, he did it to Jalen Brunson, I think, the other night on the Knicks. Now, granted, he was teammates with Jalen Brunson. That's part of the reason he knows him. Like, he doesn't do it out of malice, but he's just got a little bit of, I'm going to get you. Like, I'm going to beat you, this type of deal. And I like that mentality. He's not being rude. He's not being, like, mean necessarily, but he's also being kind of cutthroat a little bit. Like,
and he did it to Klay.
Get you.
He did it to Klay Thompson on the second Warriors game, too. After Klay and Book got into that stuff they got into the first time those two teams played. So it's like, it's not usually for no reason. And like you said, it's not without malice. But sometimes it's like, you know what? This is for you. Have this 3.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of an edge. Yeah, overall, but it's not like we're the villains, at least so far. We've calmed down on that, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't really like that. Have a little bit of edge, have some confidence, have some swagger, but like, don't be a bunch of fucking jackasses.
I still like the villain. I still liked when everyone's like, "Oh, you hate us? Fine, we'll make sure you hate us more."
But you know what though? You can't unless you win. If you win the title, you can be the villain. You can't bitch out and be the villain.
I still wish I knew what would have happened last year because, man, if we could have won last year, it would have been the greatest thing ever. But
yeah, truly. Yeah, Bridges is playing great. I mean, he's.
Yeah.
It's like the symbolism though. Like we didn't even bring him up here. It's like you almost can't help but like take him for granted, and he's so incredible.
Plays
it's
every
unfortunate.
game, plays 40 minutes a night, does what needs to be done. Solid defender, if not great. Like. And it's the same thing with Devin Booker. We're not going to talk about a lot about Devin Booker because we've talked about him on this podcast maybe more than any individual on the planet. But he's been very good. He's probably slightly better than last year again. And I think it was the 49-point game where you just realize how effortless it can be for him because the game has slowed down for him over the last few years. You can just tell he just knows what he's doing out there. So
there's a play in the Knicks game where Devin Booker got the ball up top and he saw Julius Randle was guarding the man in the corner. And Randle saw Booker with the ball up top, and Randle moved from the defending the corner and moved towards the paint. Booker saw that and threw a perfect skip pass right into Bridges' hands, and Bridges drained the 3. I think it was Bridges. But it was just like he noticed that little thing where it's like, oh, hey, there goes Randle moving into the paint. Boom, 3. And it's just he commands so much tension, but then also has this awareness on the court that he maybe didn't have in previous seasons. And it's beautiful to see. The guy's not even fully in his prime yet. He's still got so long that he could be in his prime. It's really nice.
Yeah, between him and Bridges, I think that's the big reason why being down 3 starter level players and we're still playing really pretty well.
Yeah, because we haven't said Jay Crowder, but we talked about him in the preseason preview, and we have no other activity since then, even with Cam Johnson being hurt. So why talk about a guy who's not there?
I trade Saric and Jay Crowder for John Collins.
Yeah, well, Atlanta's not going to take that deal. So I know people are like, well, the salaries match. It's like, yeah, you probably give up like 4 first-round picks because the players they're getting back in return are trash.
I mean, Sean, I would also trade Saric, and I'd even throw Shaman in with Crowder to get Kevin Durant. I mean, I'd do that.
That's even better.
I would make that deal.
That's even better.
I'm on board. I think it's bold, but I like where your head's at.
No.
So, DeAndre Ayton. We have had many discussions about him on this podcast. I like to think that we're relatively level-headed fans, and as such, I don't think we've been quite as critical of him as many in the Suns fandom have. We also have not been quite as excited about him at certain points as some of our more exuberant fans have been, where it's like he can do no wrong. We talked at length about some of the stuff in the offseason, the decision not to extend him last year, the contract stuff in this offseason. What have you seen from Ayton so far, and what are your takes on where he's at 20 games in?
I kind of hate him. I'm kind of starting to hate him. And what's happening? Here's why. You're a max player now. So it invites a whole new level of scrutiny and expectations, and you're not delivering. You're not a middle player anymore where if we get your great defense and you're passive on offense, well, that's fine because of what we're paying. You're a max player who we kind of got forced into paying the max. We really didn't want to, and we really shouldn't have, but like we had to. So we actually should have. The whole situation was bad. No, he's not living up to it at all. I mean, at all.
He's not. I mean, granted, he wasn't a max player before, but he was a number one pick. And so there's a certain set of expectations that come with that.
Sure.
Being a number one pick. What's the frustrating part is for someone, I've tended to defend Ayton in the sense of, yeah, he's not that superstar that's going to, throw you on his back and carry you to victory. But he did all the little things that were super important for victory. And even last year, when maybe his defense in the playoffs, his defense wasn't as good as it was the previous year, he was shooting like 70% from the field or something like that. It was like, okay, if you can get him into his spot, he's going to make it. So far this year, I just haven't seen that same touch around the rim. I haven't seen that same, and then it comes down to when he doesn't have that same touch, the aggressiveness goes, and all of a sudden he's, 2 of 7 and not rebounding. And it's like, what have you been doing the whole game, buddy?
The not rebounding is like, that's the thing, is like, He needs more touches. You will never convince me he needs more touches until he can get more than like 6 rebounds. If the rebounds start coming, great. And if he starts actually demanding the ball and getting great position and being forceful and we're not getting him the ball, then you have a case. Right now, you don't have a case.
He had it just in the playoffs 2 years ago. He had 18 rebounds against the Clippers?
In the playoffs 2 years ago, finals? I agree with you.
It is nothing is more frustrating. I've seen people online, on Reddit, on Twitter, constantly who are trying to back Ayton, trying to find the good side of Ayton and be like, hey, Bridges had a really shitty game and you don't pick on him. Like, why is Ayton held to this different standard? Well, when you see someone who makes it look that easy, who is that big, with that much touch, with good footwork, decent hands, it's like, this should be easy for you. How are you not just going and dominating people? And that's what frustrates people the most, I think.
It's amazing watching him because you can find 8 things that are great and 8 things that are bad in every game. And you can see why there's so much fuel to the fire on both sides of the argument when it comes to DeAndre Ayton. Things he's gotten better at this season, I think passing. He's had even better touch than in years past on his passing. Like, he's finding people out of double teams. And again, maybe he's passing too often when he's got good deep position, whether it's off of a pass or an offensive rebound. But like, he's a willful passer who can find the open man really well in this offense, which is important in 0.5. I think the defense has been as good, if not better. And I think to some extent, the rebounding problems are because he's constantly having to pick up people driving to the rim and challenge shots. And it shows more because, look, Cam Johnson and Jay Crowder are already below average rebounders for their position at power forward, and now we don't have either of them. So now it's like Torrey Craig and like fucking, Josh Okogie and a bunch of like scrubs trying to gang rebound besides Ayton. But then you also watch games where it's like he's on the court, he's running up and down. He's having an impact to some extent, but it just doesn't feel like he's there. And like you said, Sean, you hit it on the head. He's the same player as last year. The difference is the expectations surrounding the contract that he's got now.
Yeah.
That's it. It was the same thing with Devin Booker to a smaller extent. Now, Booker, obviously, we've never questioned his motivation, his drive, his heart, his will to win. But when he first had the first year of his max contract kick in, all of a sudden it was like, well, he's only averaging like a point more per game than last season. Here, because Ayton has taken a small step back, if anything, is averaging like 14 and 7 right now. The fact that he's being paid $40 million to do so all of a sudden feels like it's a much bigger issue than it was last year when he was making a rookie minimum contract.
You can't be 14 and 7. And it's not like you're Gobert out there where you're like, okay, but he's a defensive force. He's above average still, but he's not like great. I don't think he's elite anymore. I don't know.
He's not He's not a player who changes your scheme offensively because of him.
Yeah.
He's a very good defender in what the Suns do, and he's very good at, he's versatile. He can guard the perimeter. We've seen all the switches on stars and stuff like that. So I think he's still a great defender, but he's not a game-changing defender.
And it's so hard because it's so much mentality. There was I think it was a Utah game. He gets this great rebound. If he could turn, he would have been wide open for like a great flush to just like dunk it. But he passed it out. He didn't even look at the rim. And I was like, what are you doing? He passed it to an open three and we hit it. And like, that's great. And that's the offense. But it's still like a little bit like drives me crazy is like, I would be willing to give up the occasional open three if you showed that killer instinct. And it's just not you. I don't know. And we're at the point where like we just I think have to accept. I don't know.
Motor and makeup aren't going to change.
Yeah, like he is who he is now, and that's it.
And it's so tough because like, hey, get to the free throw line a little bit, and then he did the last game and was 0 for 4 to start the game. It's like, oh god, like it's so frustrating just to see someone who is like in there. And you're right, like Sean, if it feels like it's so easy to be like, hey, I got a rebound. The first thing I'm going to do on an offensive rebound is try to go back up with it. Like you or I, that's what we do when we play. When we play, if I get a rebound, I'm looking to shoot. I'm not looking to pass out.
Because that's smart. Because you're so likely to either make it because you're right there, or draw the foul on the because everything's chaotic.
And if you're that tall, it feels like I know everyone's that tall around you, but like you're that big, you're that strong. It feels like just go, and someone was going to hit you pretty much. So you'll make it and get fouled, or you'll just get fouled.
He gets in his head, and it's tough to see because good young kid, which I guess I can say now that I'm 37 and he's still in his lower 20s. But like, you can see him out there. The second that there is like a miss on a shot he should normally make, or a bad defensive rotation that he can't solve, that he kind of gets into a shell of himself and he goes into autopilot. And he's not the only player to have struggled with confidence. Lord knows, like a Goran Dragic, for example, early in his career is another person we've watched up close and personal. But when you mentioned Bridges and the fact that he's now kind of being like, all right, I'm going to get some shots up. They're going to be pretty good looks. Maybe they won't fall, but like I'm getting my looks. I know it's tough for him because he's a big. He doesn't initiate the offense and he's at the mercy sometimes of getting the ball in certain spots. But when he doesn't make the most of his chances, it's really hard for me to justify him getting the ball more often. It just is.
And, like I bring it up with Landell, like he goes in and he has so many like pick and rolls and cuts to the basket. And I'm like, are you really telling me, Suns fans who are defending Ayton, that we are specifically only icing Ayton out and like we have something against him? We like Landell and Biyombo, but we don't like Ayton. Like, no, there's something about the way that they're playing and the force that they play with, and there's something about Ayton. And it's just,
I mean, it's frustrating because Ayton, I think, is a good screen setter. I think he initiates a lot of the offense. So he's the main screen setter. I think he is a good screen setter, but his rolls are what the problem is. If he could roll hard, I mean, he makes good decisions too. If he could roll hard to the short roll and then find somebody or make a move, like what Bridges is kind of doing lately, where Bridges is kind of getting that middle area, like around the free throw line, and then makes the decision. That's great. And if Ayton can do that, but he doesn't roll hard enough to get the ball in that situation, it becomes extremely frustrating.
Yeah, because you play basketball, like there's a certain body language thing. You can tell when somebody rolls and they want the ball. And when they roll and they're kind of like, I'm content with letting the better players play. And I'm just going to I've been there, certainly. If I'm playing with really good people, I'm like, you guys do your thing. I'm just going to I don't need it. Look, and I can do the same thing, but the way that I do it carries so much.
There's a reason when we play, and this is really esoteric of us, but there's a reason when we play, Sean, I have you set the screen for me. You're a better roller than me. You always have been. I'm kind of like Ayton in a sense where I need to assess. I can't do it on the fly like that. And I don't know how you fix it. I just don't know how you fix it. It's something that you feel like you should be able to film and work on it and practice and all that because you have all the resources at your disposal. But it's something that is just kind of innate at some point. And
I don't want to say... Yeah, that you can't fix it. But the more time that goes on, the less likely it becomes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not necessarily convinced that we're done with him by any means. He's still young. He's still developing. Oh, yeah. He's been adding something each season. So I'm not like off of the DeAndre Ayton train by any means. But to me, the most damning thing is that we're down so many players and he still cannot assert himself in games where we could desperately use his footprint.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing, like to me, I always thought the idea it's like, well, Ayton should be like 20 and 10 plus. And it's like when we're fully healthy, especially like last year or the last 2 years with Crowder in the mix as well and all the other players, all the firepower we have, I don't know that that's necessary for us to be a successful team for him to be 20 and 10. But for him to be, again, 14 and 8 when we're down, like you said, 2 starters and another by proxy in Crowder, That to me is troubling because now it's like, again, you're the second highest paid player on the team now, and we can't really depend on you to step up when we're down players.
What was just so tough, though, like when we looked at even Ayton against the Pelicans in that series where Booker was out, like he had a really good series, I thought, against the Pelicans, scored a lot. And this is kind of our taste where it whetted our appetite a little bit. We're like, oh, this is what he can do. Like he's really scoring. He's getting out there. He's playing harder, scoring 20 a game. This is what we want. And then,
yeah.
Gone.
And I will say, like, I'm not done in the sense of like I need him off the team or anything, but this isn't a Josh Jackson situation. Am I still believing he is essential to a championship core going forward? I'm on the fence, and that's the one I don't know about, and that's to me what is really disappointing. I look at Booker, I look at Bridges, Cam Johnson, if he can fucking stay healthy ever, and that's starting to become a real concern.
Yep.
That's what I start to see the core as. Ayton, we've kind of shown like you can kind of replace a lot of the things that he does on the team with some other players, maybe not quite as good, but it's not like a hole is left that we cannot fill. And I want there to be a hole.
Yeah. I want it to be like, oh shit, Ayton's out tonight. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Which is what happens when Booker's out.
Exactly.
But even to a lesser extent, a Paul or a Bridges, you go, okay, like maybe we can win without him, but like this is going to take some adjustment and some people are going to have to step up. Where, like you said, I mean, Biyombo, JaVale McGee, Jock Lyondale a little bit. Like you can plug other centers into this specific offensive strategy and seemingly be okay. Ayton's had 3 double-doubles in his last 4 games. So I guess we're trending in the right direction a little bit more, but I don't know. It still just feels like it's not enough, and it may never be enough because if it isn't more than this, his detractors are going to continue to hate him, and his fans are going to keep shouting into the abyss because they're not going to sway the detractors. So I guess that's it.
I just pulled this up real quick. Do you guys know what his lines were in the Pelicans series last year where I thought he dominated?
He did not dominate, I can tell you that much.
Well, 21-9 in game 1, 10-9 in game 2. Not great. 28-17 in game 3. Mm-hmm. Holy shit. Like, yes, please. 23-8 in game 4, 19-9 in game 5, and 22-7 in game 6. Like, 23-8. Like, if he was doing that consistently, I don't think any of us would have an issue.
With the defense he displayed in the last couple playoffs, yes. But unfortunately, He's taken a step back in both regards. Now it's the regular season. I don't need him to bring that focus and intensity, but I don't think he's earned the right to slack off yet either. And I know I've mentioned it before. I think there is a small undercurrent of this that's also racially motivated, where it's like, well, if a black player is not trying every minute they're on the floor, because you have scrappy young white guys like fucking Jose Alvarado running around there diving on every play. It's like, yeah, they also play 12 minutes a game, but... Yeah. I digress. The point is, as long as everything Ayton does looks easy, there's always going to be a demand for him to do more of it. And whether that's fair or not is another discussion, but that's going to be the criteria here.
Yes, the crowd out there we should start Jock Lyondale instead of Ayton. It's like, oh God.
I know.
Just no.
Lyondale's been great in 5-minute stretches. It's the same as like Biyombo, who can come in and fill in admirably for 4 minutes, block a couple shots, hustle, set picks. We love a Biyombo because the expectations are lower.
Yeah.
All right, last thing, just real quick, because we got to get out of here, but I wanted to at least talk about a little bit about Kyrie Irving and the more recent development of Jaylen Brown, also going down the Kyrie rabbit hole of being like, what if we just don't say anti-Semitism is okay, but then we do everything in our power not to say that it's not okay either. We're just going to dance around the subject and post memes and veiled tweets and confusing, nonsensical statements that don't actually say any words. I'm extremely disappointed. I've seen a lot of Celtics fans that are also disappointed now, so I'm glad to see that at least. But boy, what a black mark for the NBA the last couple weeks have been.
Well, it's so funny because Jaylen Brown was like a defender of Kyrie Irving, basically being like, what he did may or may not have been right, but there's a certain freedom of speech here going on, and like I think that these punishments, they're out of line, like they're too much. And then you find out, well, actually, he also kind of has some problems. And so they're kind of 2 peas in a pod a little bit. And now the argument doesn't mean as much.
I cannot, for the life of me, and maybe this is me showing my age, if I were in their position as an NBA player where I am in a position to I can make 9 figures in my career, over a contract. Damon, I think it was Damian Lillard was going to make $63 million in this upcoming contract in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's insane how much money you can make. Hire a PR person. I would never touch social media if I was an NBA player. I would be like, hey, PR person, I kind of feel like saying this. Can you make sure it's okay? Okay, good. Go for it. Like, I would never touch this thing because it doesn't, unless you have a team that promotes you and does it right and knows a good feel for what the environment is, it only hurts people, I think. I mean, there are people who are good at social media and they do a good job with it, but like the uneducated, horrible. I don't understand why people use it in that sense.
I like agree and disagree with you at the same time because I totally would do the same thing. Why risk it? Why risk it at all? Right?
What benefit?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think the issue is like if you're a Steph Curry, you're probably fine doing your social media. I would still want somebody to look at it, but like you're not going to run into the same problems. Like I think that the issue, and of course you know this too. You're not saying this, but the anti-Semitism and sharing that shit, I think, is the real issue here.
Like that's my whole point. If Jaylen Brown had a check or had somebody who was like, hey, you know, this thing that Kyrie said is actually a pretty good movie. I think maybe we should talk. No, Jaylen, let's just hold on here.
Or the more recent problem, which was, there's a group of people supporting Kyrie at his first game back. That's great. It looks like they're in a fraternity. Oh, they're actually a horrible hate group. Whoops, if I'd done 2 minutes of research, maybe I could have avoided that.
Or
and then
a team who do the research for you.
Right, but even then, even if he didn't have a team in place, once that was brought to his attention, he still didn't delete the tweet. He still did nothing to address it. That, to me, between him and Kyrie, the doubling and tripling down is the part that baffles me more than anything. Because most people, if you're like, oh man, I didn't really know enough about that at the time, I looked into it more, and like, I'm sorry about that. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
But because Kyrie's a superstar, he doesn't get the Myers-Leonard treatment where he's exiled from the fucking league. He just gets to come back and we can figure out what his next shoe deal is going to be and if he can drop 25 in his first game back against Philly or whatever the fuck.
It's the same thing with Trump, where like Republican, I won't say who I was thinking of because that's mean, but it's not you, Dave. They'll be like, do you really think he's anti-Semitic? And like, you're really twisting it to conflate these two issues. And my response is so easy. Why can't he just say the words, I am not anti-Semitic, or this thing is wrong if you don't want to be like by the book? It's so easy to just say the thing. They're giving him, sir, mister, can you just say this line? And then they talk in circles for 30 minutes and say nothing.
I think just to try to get into the head of some people, I think certain people have achieved a level of success doing it their own way, and that they can't do anything other. If they're told to do something or told that well, I'm going to do it my way. That's the way I did it. And that they've reached some level. And so there just isn't that ability to do so. And it's baffling to a lot of us. But I got to think that's it. Like that has to be the explanation.
People think that it is the uneducated in this country that are dangerous. And I say, no, it is the people who think that they're extremely smart who are not, and especially those that have a platform. And in this case, it's no more apparent because now you have Kyrie going, well, I've read the Oxford Dictionary, which is easily the dumbest takeaway of this entire span, where it's like, okay, great.
Congratulations.
You know some words. You don't know how to use any of them, but, I mean, phenomenal.
No, I would be like, why did you read the dictionary?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Cover to cover, nightly reading, what are we talking about? And then Jaylen Brown, after all the pushback of the last 48 hours, posting that meme that gets used sometimes where it's the example of Twitter where it's like, I like apples. And then somebody else posts like, oh, you're saying you hate oranges? That's such a biased take, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, great. You're talking about fruits not being the same. Except right now, we're comparing people that unfairly scapegoat the Jewish community with people who don't. So if those are fruits, then great. But unfortunately, they're not. So, like, it's like you don't get it, and there's clearly no one powerful enough in your circle to make you sit down and at least not talk about it. Because while I'd love for them to actually be reformed, like Myers-Leonard seems to have been, by the way, and make good on actionable items in the community, at least shut the fuck up. But no one in their circle has been like, hey, maybe we should let this blow over before you open your mouth again. Now, look, I know it starts to sound like we're treading on shut up and dribble territory, but it's like, in this case, no, you have the free speech right to talk about whatever you want. But when you get pushback from leaders of the community that tell you this is harmful to them and how much it hurts them, maybe listen. And then don't shut up and dribble. Talk correctly and dribble.
Yeah. When your free speech starts bordering on hate speech, I think maybe just take a step back, chill out. Yeah, and Kevin Durant is like, for all of his, foibles and social media, whatever, his biggest controversy is like being mean to like kids like dribbling and being like, that's trash.
Yeah.
Like,
or making burner accounts. Yeah. Or like all this harmless shit.
Yeah. Or hey, I want to win, so I'm going to go to a team that is stacked. Oh no, the horror! What a horrible human being!
Like John Morant posts all sorts of weird stuff on Twitter, calling out other teams and like it's stuff he probably shouldn't, like bulletin board type material. But it's all just in the context of the game. So like you might be like, all right, maybe Josh should calm down a little bit. But again, he's not like infringing upon people's rights and well-being by doing this.
It's so sad to me that the joke now is do your research. Do your research is the joke, because that's what the stupid people tell educated people to do. Like, it's just so backwards. Yeah, when you're in a plane, you can't see the horizon. Keep an open mind, do some research, and you'll see. It's like, no.
We thought the flat earth stuff was just harmless fun. It was actually a gateway to something much more insidious.
Absolutely correct. Because these people, they have to feel like they're part of this exclusive club where they're smarter than everybody, and what they know is fact. And they see all the conspiracies, and we're just sheep. I think they're actually the sheep in a weird way, because like we can predict exactly what they're going to say because they're crazy.
Bingo. Do your research from this select group of people in which I've said that I'm going to get all of my information from, because they're going to tell me what I want to hear. Do your research. Yeah,
do your research. And the first account that you hear of that dissents from the popular opinion, just go with it. Mm-hmm. Just dive right into that.
2 + 2 is 5. Do your research. Someone comes back and says it's 4. Well, now the media is trying to control the narrative.
You didn't keep an open mind. I knew you were going to do this. It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Like, you've really just got to open your mind, Sean. Like, your eyes have to be open to the possibilities.
I know. I was listening to Republican radio today. It's been a while, and they're still on anti-masks. Masks don't work, and why can't we just enjoy Thanksgiving? We have to be so worried. And I was like, this is why there wasn't the red wave that just, you guys realize that, right?
Yeah, because you focus on stupid bullshit instead of actual policies. Which some of the Republican platform is actually, I agree with and I think is good. But they spend so much time fucking conspiracy theory stuff. And we talked about it when you weren't here last week, but all the election denialism and all this hate mongering and fear stoking where it's like, okay, I guess you haven't learned anything. Let's see what happens in 2024.
The Republicans are like, some of their policies I agree with, but it's like when you have a law and the first part of the law is like, yeah, I can agree with that. And then like in the bylines, they're like, also like, you have to have sex with your family members. And you're like, well, now I can't do the main law because the bylaw, they're so stupid. That's how I feel about Republicans in general. Like, I can't get behind your smart stuff because your stupid stuff is so stupid.
How are they still complaining about masks? I mean, I don't see people wearing masks around.
I don't know. They're just, because they're like, if you wear a mask, you're a fucking idiot.
Because I would almost argue, I'm not saying for Thanksgiving, but like right now, as Sean was talking about, like there's no cold medicine on the shelves because everybody's been sick.
Yeah.
Whether it is flu because it's flu season, or COVID because it's still here somewhere, or the cold, or whatever. So like maybe it would be a good time to maybe mask up again a little bit. But
masks don't work. Masks don't work. If you do your research, you'll
they're not even required anywhere anymore. You can just wear them at your leisure.
That I have said for the longest time. This is diving away from basketball, but like all I wanted from the whole COVID thing was people to be like, I feel sick and I'm coughing. I'm going to wear a mask to not get other people sick. That sounds wonderful, doesn't it?
They politicize masks.
There's judgment somehow.
We probably could have seen coming, but that's exactly what happened.
That happened even during the pandemic, so it's not that shocking. Course. But now it's like, yeah, again, maybe we could have taken away the lessons. Wash your hands, like, stay home if you're sick, all that stuff, because didn't you feel healthier the last couple of years as Dave dies in the middle of the podcast?
Man, I tell you, I got, what was it, like 2 years, no sickness. You're telling me it's because the masks don't work? They had nothing to do with that?
I think so. Hey, Dave's back. Just in time to get the end of the show.
Yeah, we're done. We're done. We're going off on a tangent, but I enjoyed it actually a lot. I like the tangent. People are so stupid. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Alrighty. Speaking of stupid things, as Cody's here, he's going to walk
Cody's
through the shot. Don't worry about it.
Big old dummy Cody.
He's going to stand over there? Okay.
Stupid idiot.
Hold on, look. I'll show him. There he is. And there he is. He's waving.
Hey, look at that big dumb idiot.
Programming notes real quick as we wrap up. Next week is a regular show. I was hoping maybe to sneak a trivia in because it's going to be a while if I don't, but it sounds like Sean's going to be out of town. So
it's work. I know, it's work. I'm sorry.
Gallery is correct about that one. That's
I would even call in, but I think the shoot is going to go past when we would be doing the show, potentially. So it's just a nightmare.
But we will have a show next. Actually, I got to go to the slide because look, here it is. So we have a show next week. We actually have a show every week through the end of the year because, as we mentioned in the past, we're going to be doing our top 25 games of all time. We're going to be going honorable mention the first week of December, and then like 25 to 16, 15 to 6, 5 to 1. Each week on the show, they'll air, like they've been recorded. We're going to do them in advance, but they'll air at the usual time slot. And as a last reminder, time slot has changed if you're not in Arizona. We didn't mention this last week, but of course, daylight savings time happened again. So now it's 9:30 Eastern. Still 7:30 Arizona time, but if you're in a different time zone, keep in mind it changed in relation to us. You can always tell from the YouTube page. It tells you it starts in X amount of time. But just as a reminder, that did happen. I know not everybody comes from Arizona. We have about half of our listeners from outside Arizona, so I wanted to remind people. But regular show next week, top 25 games. The whole month of December, we have the list finalized. It's a doozy. It should be exciting. And then the first show of January will be our 2022 year in review show that we do every year. So everything is lined up, and it's going to be super cool. Last words from you two, quick.
Oh, no, I was good. Man, I felt great. I went on a rant. I talked shit about a whole lot of people, specifically and in general. I'm pretty happy.
I've already got my top shows going. I've got the list. I'm just going to see if I can fit in one more TV show to see if I can get my top show of 2022, and we'll see how it goes.
Andor. Because you've already seen Better Call Saul.
Yeah, you would like Andor.
Yeah.
Andor, Dave, is like if you took people who were like Better Call Saul level writers and you had them do a Star Wars show. That's what Andor is.
All right. I'm a little jaded from some of the other Star Wars shows, but I'll see.
Oh, he's probably echoing because he rejoined the call. It's fine. It's almost over. There we go. I fixed it.
It's not like the other. It's so much classier than the other Star Wars shows.
All right. We'll give it a shot.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I see you in the chat. I see you, Josh. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. As mentioned, in between shows, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com or youtube.com/objectionnetwork for videos 5 to 7 days a week. We'll see you next time.